Welcome to Tony.at.12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Bruce Woodhead, Deputy Chairman of the States of Alderney General Services Committee. Bruce is going to give us an update on various matters. Bruce, good to see you.
Morning, Tony. Good to see you too.
My first question, can we use the sprinklers yet?
No. it hasn't been lifted, but then who would want to use sprinklers today?
Well,
Go on.
Yeah. Sorry, Bruce,
Sorry.
continue.
I was going to just to clarify that sprinkler restriction were brought in really to make people aware of the fact that although we don't have water problems very often on the island, water is a significant product as far as the island is concerned, and we must always look after it.
Yeah, agreed.
So and the sprinklers tend to use quite a lot. It was, yeah. But
anyway, I thought I'll be just a little bit facetious. Right, let's get on to serious matters. You've appointed a new CEO. His career, he has been involved in government before, I believe.
He's been involved in government both in Scotland and in Cornwall. From our point of view, his most important appointment was as CEO of the Scilly Isles, where they have a population similar to ours, although I think the structure of government, although similar, is a bit different because it's much closer to England and they get money from England. But
sure.
No, I was on the selection committee and I met him, and I'm very impressed with him. Why
was the clerk title dropped? Because when we first advertised the position, it was shown as clerk to the States of Alderney. What created the change?
Okay. Previously, we've advertised for a CEO, and we've had responses from people who have been perhaps overqualified isn't quite the answer, but they've been used to dealing with big organizations, Manchester County Council or what have you, and having big civil service behind them. This time we advertise for a clerk, but by law, we don't have a clerk, we have a CEO.
Right.
By law, and it's written in law, that we have to advertise it as CEO. But we emphasize the clerk this time because we just wanted to get the right person with the right mix. And I think we have with Theo. I think it's going to be, he's going to be the right person for our size. He's hands-on. He will speak straight, and he'll get involved, very involved.
When does he start?
January the 1st, I would imagine.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think the date has actually been fixed because there are always bits and pieces to tidy up.
Yeah. And having to give notice to his present employer, presumably, and stuff like
yes,
that.
Indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Right. Next question is, any progress on good governance? This is something that's been around for what, 5-7 years, something like this, and hasn't got very far so far.
Well, masses of apologies there in many ways. The good governance paper was completed this time last year and was given to the legal boys to go through. And they have taken quite a long time. It's a very complex paper. It's based primarily on executive government, which may or may not be the right thing to do, but it is a paper that or a principle that we put before the public over a year ago.
Yeah,
I think it's been found to be quite difficult, and we have, as a committee, slightly rethought the idea. Well, I say I've rethought it. I'm not too keen on executive management for Alderney because I don't think that we have the right structure of people. We have as our statesmen basically elderly members who are good financially in their own right, and who can. They don't need to have a salary. We don't pay a salary. We don't attract younger people, dynamic people to do executive government in a true sense. And it's a very good way of government. You have to have professional people, really. And I think that we've moved quite a long way with the island plan and one or two other things, and appointing different people to do different jobs, as far as we need to. But what we do need to do now is we need to agree on those things that are very good within the paper, bring them out, put them into a shorter paper, and get it presented for the billet, so that we can change things like, well, at least we can debate the change of things like the 2-year cycle, just going on to a 4-year cycle and that sort of thing. That will take a long time, but those things need to come out into the open, properly debated, and get onto the billet.
Do you see a situation still where the number of states members will be reduced from 10 to 8? That was one of the things that came up in the past.
Yes, it's something that is in the paper. It is proposed that it should be 8. Again, while members are fairly elderly, if you look back on it, there's been 1 or 2 over the years of a bunch of 10 who are off sick, having new hips, having new knees, etc., etc. So you sort of say to yourself, well, you do need 8 people, and do we have 8 people all the time when we have the older generation, as it were, running the situation? I don't know. 8 is fine. We could do with 8. 8 would work.
Trouble is, for younger people, Bruce, politics full of uncertainties the whole time. If you sort of decide you're going to commit to the states of Alderney and you get a living salary to be able to do that, you've always got the fear that at the end of 4 years you're going to be kicked out, and you've lost so many rungs on your career ladder as a result of that.
It's a very good point. I mean, that's even if we did pay a living salary, which we don't, of course, and we get expenses.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. Okay, let's change the subject a bit and get on to the states of Guernsey and their so-called £60 million deficit. They don't seem to be able to get anywhere in terms of coming up with solutions there. And I think that's another example of where consensus politics just doesn't work.
I agree. They've got 40 politicians, 2 representing ourselves. And they don't have, as you say, they don't have parties. They don't have a direction. There are 2 factions. There are at least 2 groups there who are in opposition to one another. But I have to say that both those groups have at some stage come up with solutions, and GST has been a solution with both groups all the time. And so, I mean, I can't solve that problem for them. They will have to trim their budgets a bit. They will have to, but basically, they're going to have to introduce a form of taxation. And I think that if they had introduced GST with the emission of essential services and goods, they would have got much further with it. But once you bring food into it and children's clothing, etc., you get a massive reaction against it.
With Jersey, you were able to park their GST very easily. I was speaking to John Young a few months ago, and he said that, relatively speaking, the population accepted that they'd got a black hole in the finances of government and something had to be done to plug it.
Yes, I think he's made that sound a bit easier than it really was for them. But one of the great things about Jersey is, and it's a fear of everybody, is that they have not increased it each year to make it 20% that you have in England and you have on the continent. And that's good. That's very good.
Yeah, and from what he was saying, they seem to have the matter under control. I mean, you haven't got any other solutions to this, have you?
Not really, no. I mean, I'm not a Guernsey politician, and I don't know the ins and outs of the Guernsey balance sheet particularly well. But from what I've heard, there are very few solutions. And GST, I think, is the one that they will adopt within the next 4 or 5 years. Believe you me, if not sooner, it will be adopted.
They had on the table a situation where they were prepared to reduce income tax to 15% for earnings under 30,000, and also reduce the social security contributions. Nobody's actually ever been able to show me at what point do you tip into, dare I say, profit or surplus in terms of getting more in than you're effectively giving out by making these concessions?
When you're introducing something like GST, you want to bring the public with you.
Mm.
And so giving the concessions which helps enormously the lower paid group is essential.
Yeah.
And the concessions are absolutely necessary. And as far as, I think one of the questions you were looking at was, how does GST affect Alderney? And the answer is that because of our structure and such like, I think that it doesn't really adversely affect us greatly. It'll be something that we really do need to bring in and accept. People hate it. People say to me, that's the last thing we want. You say to them, what's the other solution? And no idea.
I think one of the solutions Guernsey were considering, whether it actually got into the debate situation, was borrowing from the Social Security Fund, which I understand is a managed fund, to sort of do a short-term bridging loan, if you like. I don't think that's right, Bruce, because, to my mind, that money is sacrosanct. It's there for pensions, for the population of the bailiwick. It's there for health and welfare and everything else. You wouldn't be too keen on that, would you?
You are completely correct. It should never be put at risk in any form or any way. However, when you've got a large lump of money, you have to manage it.
Yeah.
And in managing it, you will put it out for investment, probably in government bonds and the like. There'll be safe investments, but you need to protect it against inflation. You don't want it to diminish, and therefore you are investing it. If your own country, if you like, in this instance, is perfectly sound in every other way, and is prepared in a completely open manner to be one of the people who the pension fund invest in, then I have difficulty in seeing why not. I can see the emotional side. That one wants to say, no,
yeah,
you don't lend money to yourself. You might be, to get out of a problem. But if you're not getting out of a problem in the sense that you're not going bankrupt or anything of that nature, then I'm not so sure that it couldn't be done satisfactorily.
Okay. But I think it's currently off their agenda. It was just something, an idea that had been mooted,
Sure.
but didn't actually happen. Let's get on to town planning, Bruce. And can we talk about the listing of town properties and the debacle there, please?
Okay. Yes. A massive mistake. I am on the planning committee, and we are extremely ashamed that the whole structure of setting up a historic building was flawed from the beginning. We hadn't known, we didn't work on the beginning. This was done with previous people, but really and truly, the right procedures have not been followed. And we had no option when we realized that this was the case, but to completely withdraw all the latest listings. And if we come back to doing it again, it will be done in a much different way and with much more consultation with house owners, etc., etc. So all I can do is say sorry, made a mistake, horrible mess. There we go.
I mean, two things. With the best will in the world, it's a lovely little town. It's quaint, but none of those properties would be listed in the UK. None of them, I don't think.
Right. Now then, the whole point here is that it is exactly as you've said. It's a lovely town. In its own way, it has its own character. And listing isn't about comparing it with Buckingham Palace.
No.
Listing is about comparing it with what we've got and keeping what we've got as it is as best as possible. I don't mean the derelict side of things,
No.
but we have some very lovely conservation areas and some quite nice buildings in those areas. Yes, I agree with you. We have very few fine buildings that would be listed in the UK, but that's not the point. It's our atmosphere, it's our island, it's the way we feel about it, it's what it looks like and what it looked like for years and how it is. It's quaint, it's lovely, and to preserve that, then you have to make some sort of listings, some sort of conservation areas, have some sort of control.
How do you justify timber windows when we all know that from an energy saving point of view, they're not anywhere near as efficient as double glazing using UPVC?
Yeah, it's a bit of a fallacy that the actual area of windows in the older houses is quite small, and the saving, there is a saving, but the saving in energy is nothing like as big as people think. However, it is a very sore point at the moment. Wooden windows, plastic windows. It's a very difficult one. We have a policy at the moment whereby if we can keep the original wooden windows, that's what we like to see, especially in the conservation areas, and it would be more so as far as the listed inverted commas properties are concerned. But we're not daft. If the wooden windows are completely rotten and falling out, they're very expensive to replace as wooden windows. I think we have to take the attitude that plastic windows will probably take over completely at the end of the day.
Yeah, okay. Let's get on to the airport. Can you give us a redevelopment update, please, as to how you see things going there?
At the moment, we are on programme. There are a few small bits and pieces that have got to be tidied up. We are out to tender. The tenders should be back within the next couple of weeks. We are programmed to start work in late spring. We are already making provisions for the time when the airport will inevitably be closed. And so we're looking at how we deal with connectivity during that period. And our plans are progressing. And obviously, the sword of Damocles hangs around with Guernsey. And we may find ourselves with Guernsey, some of the people in Guernsey shouting loudly that they don't think it should be done. But in truth, the airport extension was promoted by Guernsey to save money in Orini. And there are people in Guernsey who still believe, and we do, that by extending the runway and changing the fleet, a big saving is made, which is way above the cost of the extra extension. So it's a positive rather than a negative in a financial sense.
Yeah. But Guernsey states could still put a spanner in the works.
Some of the members of Guernsey, they have a strange idea about Alderney. It's changed quite a lot since we bubbled together and we were their staycation. We got a lot of kudos from that, but it's still, there are a few there who
we'll leave it at that, I think, on that subject.
Yes.
Reliability with Aurigny, it seems that we're still suffering on occasions where there aren't enough pilots, there aren't enough planes, the wind's blowing in the wrong direction. I realise that some of these things you have to put up with, but on some occasions the rest of it just seems to be poor organisation and a disregard for us on Alderney, particularly given the fact we pay so much to get on and off the island.
Yeah, I slight defence of Orini in as much that they only run 2 aeroplanes, and one of them is usually being serviced or looked after. We do Medivac as well. They have got the number of aircraft down to an absolute minimum to give the service. Other than that, they do the best they can. Yes, there are complaints. Yes, we usually get hit at the wrong weekend. I mean, 90%, 80% of the time, everything flows quite well. They have some other problems as well from the point of view of booking seats. You try and book a seat for August next year. If it's open, I'm not sure if it is open, but suddenly it's very difficult to book a seat for August next year. But that's partly to do with the fact they do have a rather strange system that you can pay the higher figure and have a totally flexible flight, which means that you can cancel it 2 days or 2 hours before you fly.
Sure.
Which means they have no chance of filling that seat. So planes fly not completely full because of the flexibility situation.
That's something they need to apply their minds to.
They do.
As far as the PSO, the public service obligations concerned, that would run out before the airport development would be finished. Is that correct?
It runs out in 2025. Yes.
Yeah.
Airport development will be finished about the same time.
Right.
So there will be a new arrangement.
Let's talk about positive things, Bruce.
Thank you.
Of which I always like to see when the states of Alderney or their contractors are digging holes. It's always a good sign. And it seems to me that you're getting on fairly well with the Surage Works down at Platsaline.
That's been very successful, and it is now connected.
Good.
One of the really good things about that, it is only phase 2, and there's 3, 4, and 5 to come. And one of the great things about that is that, unbeknown to quite a lot of people, a system of collecting solids has been introduced into the current system, so that unlike in the past, when sewage was collected from the septic tanks and such like, all solids are taken out. That's wet wipes and these sort of things are taken out before it goes to Fort Doyle. And actually, that's quite a big thing.
Yes, yeah. So that's a positive, isn't it? From that,
it's a positive indeed. It is.
Why do people actually have to apply for planning permission to connect to the sewer? Didn't get that one.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? They do. You have to apply for planning permission for almost anything on this island. And I don't know. I honestly and truly, I sit here on the planning committee, and I can't give you a positive answer as to why, because it's an underground thing. You have to get building regs, obviously, we understand that, but planning is also needed. Fact of life, but it's Bruce, covered by the grant anyway.
Gone are the golden days when we connected here in Vallelonge and just dug a hole, and the states came along and joined it up.
Yeah.
Happy days, but that's going back 30 years, I think, something like that. What about the water mains upgrade in Longy Road? What's that all about?
Yeah, well, we're upgrading. I mean, the Water Board are upgrading right around the island, actually, and we shall shortly. They'll shortly be coming. I say shortly, and next year they'll be coming into the town and starting to upgrade, which is a time when we have to be very careful at looking at where water trenches are being dug to make sure that if anything else has got to go in, it goes in, and we're not digging up the second time, because these cobbles are quite difficult to replace properly.
Any chance of a bit of fibre broadband going in?
That would be nice, but you need to have something to connect it to.
I won't pursue that one any further.
No, we'll leave that one for me.
Earlier this year, I had a visit from the hedge police.
Do you know what the hedge police? From the hedge police?
From the hedge police, not the head, the hedge.
Yeah,
they told me that my hedge was protruding onto the highway and I should do something about it. Otherwise, they would come and do something about it and charge me. I told them that my resident gardener had, been very busy and hadn't had a chance, and I got it done. But does seem to me it was a little bit heavy-handed, I guess. But what they don't seem to realise is that as well as hedges, they should be looking at highway sight lines. I'll give you an example. If you go down Valongi, when you get to the bottom, you turn right completely blind because there's vegetation belonging presumably to the owner in the way. Shouldn't you be imposing, you know, a little bit of cutting so that you get the sight line back?
Yes, I'm surprised. I mean, I think it's great that they came and asked you to cut your hedge to put the
Only
sight
got
lines
one
back,
broken arm.
but they should do it consistently all around the place.
Yeah.
No, I honestly don't know. The sight lines are important. There are quite a lot of people, quite a lot of corners, and there are a lot of areas on the island which in other circumstances would be quite dangerous.
Yeah.
But because our traffic is so small, and it is, we seem to have too many cars, but the actual traffic flow on the island and around and about is very small indeed, which means it reduces greatly the danger. And we only do 30 miles an hour, don't we?
The only problem is that if you take the junction with Newtown Road and the lower road, or Rue de Beaumont, if you might like to call it that, the angle is such that you've got to turn your head 180 degrees to see if there's any. The junction with Newtown Road, that's
Newtown Road,
past from Blanchard's over the railway crossing, dipping down to connect up with Rue de Beaumont.
That's awkward, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, I've had a go at previous states members about this. I think it would be very easy to put in a false curb so that you could actually get the vehicle round to right angles to the road to be able to easily see what's happening.
I agree with you. It would be. I'm not sure how much of a problem it's caused.
Well, it has. There have been several.
Other than a ricknack. Sorry.
No, there have been several accidents there in the past. It has got a bit of a reputation, I'm afraid.
Has it?
One of which was fairly serious. But, you know, you can buy these plastic things that you fill with water. They're pretty substantial, used a lot in the UK. And something like that would be just the job, actually. Anyway, that's my moan from that point of view.
I'll talk to Richard about it.
What about road resurfacing? Where are we on there? Still waiting for the airport?
No, we're not. It's all systems go. Right. We've put it into the budget for next year. And General Services have been told to get on with it, issue the contracts, and get going.
We're talking about
next year. It will start.
Surface dressing or hot rolled asphalt?
Not my expertise.
Surface dressing is when they put a layer of tar down and chuck gravel on top, whereas hot rolled asphalt comes actually through a proper machine. And that's what they used to do.
We have a machine.
Right.
We would like to use hot, but I have suspect that the machine up at the Arsenal for doing the tarmac may. I don't know. Some people say it's going to cost a few bob to get it back into operation.
Okay.
We'll see.
Fair enough. The new Cornal, that's going okay. Was it in budget?
It may not be in time, but it's certainly in budget.
Good. Okay.
And that's the revised budget, of course.
Right. Fair enough. What about the old Cornal? What are you doing with that?
Close to my heart. I love that old building. Since the states put the roof right and stopped the leaks and such like, the building has dried out and it's really very good inside. We had a survey done for dry rot and it was quite clear. We've now moved on. We've got a plan for a dozen high quality flats aimed at the sort of first retirement stage. It won't be restricted to this because there are other people who would like to buy them as well, but it will be primarily for those people who are downsizing, releasing bigger properties, wanting to get, and we've now got to the stage where we've got a very nice plan, and we are having a firm of quantity surveyors study the plan and produce for us a basic outline of cost so that we know whether or not it's going to be viable. That's the most important thing.
Would you
We
be
know
selling?
the value at the end. Now we need
Yeah.
to know the cost.
Would you be selling them or renting them?
Uh, they would be sold on long leases.
Yeah.
In principle.
Okay, so I mean that's going to give the states a bit of money after you sort of knocked off the cost of actually doing the restoration. Yeah.
Well, yes, but I can't confirm that the states will be the developer of it.
Right.
We can't look at that just at the moment. First of all, we need to know the viability.
Sure.
That's the most important thing.
But you're open-minded as to whether or not it's public or private.
I would like it to stay within the states. It would mean organizing finance and such like. But we are not developers as such. Therefore, we have to be a little bit careful. That may have been my profession, and I may have a preference for getting on and doing that way. But I do have to be a bit careful.
Yeah, my view is that local authorities and private doesn't necessarily work too well. Woking Council have got a deficit of over £1 billion, where a property development scheme went wrong. There you go. Now,
there you go.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about was the question of availability of mortgages on leasehold properties. This has always been a bit of a problem in the past. Have you been able to find out anything about that?
Yeah, quite a lot. I don't know if people realise, but there are 110 properties on the island that are that will sell when they come on the market between 150 and 250,000. Perfect first-time homes, perfect family homes for young families, and they can't buy them because of the fact that they are leasehold and there are no mortgages. The problem is that we have a law on Alderney which classifies freehold property as realty and leasehold property as, in my terminology, a chattel. In other words, it's personal property.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And the banks, the lawyers, advocates in Guernsey have advised the banks that chattels, personal property, is not a sound security for loaning money, and therefore basically none of the banks are free to loan unless there are other guarantees and such like attached to it. And we have to change that, and we've started to do so. We have to change the law. It's not simple, and it will take a little while, but I think by the end of next year I should be very disappointed if we haven't achieved putting leasehold property into realty and getting it okay for mortgages.
And at which point you ease the affordability situation a little bit, don't you?
You do. It means that you release, affordable housing for a whole group of people.
Well, whilst we're talking about property, derelict properties, is there anything being done to sort that out?
I think the famous words are in hand. It's
sounds a bit political to me, Bruce.
I'm very keen, and there are several of us very keen to see things like that wonderful development down by Whitegates and the bus stop, it's been going on for 30 odd years. We have to do something about that. We have to do something about the property in the Triggle, which has been standing there with open windows gaping at you from the concrete around. We have to do something about it, and we have got it well on the agenda.
But you haven't got a law there, or have you, at the moment that you could exercise? No. So that's once again,
No, well, we've got a compulsory purchase law.
Yeah.
But please don't. I don't mean that we'll go rush around compulsory purchasing anything. But in certain circumstances where a family has inherited, and it's inherited by 6 or 7 different people, there are complexities.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what the form is down by the bus station, by the bus stop. I mean, that's we have to dig to the bottom of that.
It is 30 years. I think the person concerned lives in the garage.
Correct.
Which has been finished.
Yes, this is
And
correct.
I think it's one course of bricks a year.
That's again correct. Yes.
Yeah. But
Um,
it's silly, isn't it? Really.
yes, that's a good word for it.
Mm, there you go. Energy program. We're getting a bit short on time. So, wind and solar. I think there was a press release today from the States and Alderney Electricity saying that they're getting on with ideas for solar sites. You okay on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The Fort Albert is a preferred position for any wind turbines, and the AEL have looked at about a dozen sites for having a group of panels, because I mean they quite rightly say that it is better to have a group rather than putting them on
Oh
different
yeah,
houses.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and so that's quite advanced now. I mean, they've got some sites, and I think the publicity is quite good, and I think shortly they'll be able to put down to the public what we really want to do.
So
Alongside that, of course, we're still looking at tidal energy.
yeah, but that everyone seems to think is a long way down the track, don't they?
It is. It is. I mean, every day a new format comes out,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
nothing's been landed on properly.
No, no, no. Bruce, we've run out of time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much.
And
And we'll have another review in 6 months' time, see how things are going.
right to. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thanks, Bruce.